So I wanted to talk about things that have been popping up and bubbling up lately in my conversations with people that love those who have substance abuse disorder. And one of the things that's bubbling up is we're headed into the holiday season here pretty quick. And so to give you some ideas to think about in terms of preparing, that's part of what I wanted to talk about today. But first, just kind of looking at looking back at my own little journey around this, about 6 years ago, we were just really beginning to realize that my son was having an issue with substance abuse. And then he asked for money when he had a great job, but what we didn't know was that he had lost his job. And so around the holidays, this was Thanksgiving in particular, was when we kind of found out that he was dealing with substance abuse disorder. We weren't there. We were on the phone with him. And then Christmas, we went up there to his house and went through the craziness of witnessing Christmas morning, him waking up and needing a fix. And that's the first time I'd ever seen anything like this, and so to watch him be desperate to get a fix and, like, almost out of his mind desperate, like, there was no talking to him about it, slowing him down about how to make that happen in a way that was gonna be safe. We just found ourselves right smack in the middle of it. And he and his girlfriend did end up, going to a hotel, and we waited for like 3 hours just wondering what was gonna happen, and this was Christmas Day. And so then later on, we went to the beach, um, for, the day after Christmas through the rest of the year, and we would get these phone calls that were just seriously crazy. "We need money. Somebody is going to kill me if I don't pay them off." His girlfriend would be on the phone with Patty. He would be on the phone with me. They would be arguing back and forth. And we can laugh about it now, but at the time, we were just like caught up in this and really didn't have the skills in order to navigate this. And so, what we know now is don't take the phone calls. And if there's a desperate thing going on, it is desperate in their minds. And they're just trying to work your emotions so that you give them money. And so, again, learning to say no is so critical because you are just a transaction for them and they know that they can push your buttons and work your emotions and they can be massively persistent to get the result they want out of you because you are their parent and somebody that loves them. And so this is where skill sets are really important for you is to learn the skill, pre-think what you're going to say, pre-think if you're going to take the phone call, pre-think how you're going to respond on the phone, pre-think keeping yourself cool, calm, and collected. Please refrain from getting pulled into the drama and trauma of their desperation. And, I was recently talking to someone who had dealt with this a number of years ago. And what they talked about was their own dread about the holidays. Well, what I would encourage people to do, which is what we started to do as the years went by, was design our holidays in the way that we wanted to experience our holidays. We were not going to be hijacked or captive to the trauma and drama of the disease. And if that meant not seeing my son or our son at particular holidays, then so be it. And generally speaking, as time wore on, he realized we were not going to give him money. And and I will say that was hard during the holidays because, you have traditions of gift giving and meals together and some sort of contact. And in the throes of this disease, it is not normal. You're in uncharted territory or you're in brand new territory. And so think through what's going to work for you. And if you need to say no because they are in the throes of addiction and their addiction presents itself as angry, full of drama, begging for money, pleading with you to help them get a fix, which is really generally what it's all about, then you may want to reconsider whether they're present or not with your family. Because what generally happens is they tend to hijack the holidays and other spouses, other siblings, other family members tend to not be so happy with the hijacking of the holidays. So if they're going to be around, and even if they're high, I mean, generally speaking, there were times when my son was high in the last few years where it was fine. We knew he was high. He knew he was high. And he had given up asking us for money. And he wasn't going to bring the trauma and drama into the situation. He was going to show up for a meal. And so rethink this. Think about this. Pre-rehearse how you're going to be, who you want to be in that moment, whether you're going to involve them or not. And give yourself some grace, because what I would say is it took practice through all the holidays. It took practice for years of holidays, whether it was Thanksgiving or whether it was Christmas or whether it was birthdays or whatever the holiday was. So it has taken practice, practice, practice to be able to do a holiday and not involve Sam, or do a holiday and there be no drama, even if he was using. And so that's first and foremost. I think giving yourself permission to say no and giving yourself the strength of conviction to stand by that no, and to know that that no may actually save their life. It took me quite a while to stand in the conviction of no, and it took me reframing it to understand that the yes that I might have said could actually be the last yes I ever was able to say to my son, because he overdosed. And we never have we have not gotten to that point. He is in treatment again, 4.5 months in, and appears to be doing really well. And, we just take it one day at a time. So the other thing I think it's really important for people to grasp and remember that this is a disease. It's a brain disease. It is their brains have been hijacked. And the way that they come at this is that their drugs, alcohol, whatever, is a solution to their pain. And so it also takes the first position in their brain for survival. So they will do anything, and sometimes that can be really harsh and really staggering to even think that the person that you love and raised as a child is doing things that you just would never think that they would do, whether it was stealing or taking cars or selling friends and families, possessions, so many things. And I needed to constantly remind myself that he's in survival mode, and his survival is dependent on getting the next fix in his mind, in his brain, and that his brain has been hijacked and it has been damaged. And, right now, even with 4.5 months in, we know that it's going to take at least 16 to 18 months for his brain to start to really get righted again after these years. So we're aware, we're constantly paying attention to, articles and things that people recommend to continue to learn about the disease and keep ourselves informed. And the other thing that I would say is there was one documentary that I saw quite a few years ago that really helped me get a grasp on understanding the difference between why can't they just stop and their brain being hijacked. And that was a documentary called Pleasure Unwoven. And it's a personal journey about addiction by Dr. Kevin McCauley. And he's a doctor and he found himself addicted to drugs. And so in his own journey, he wrestled with, is this just a choice or is this a disease? Is this a moral failing? Am I a junkie, bad person, lower than scum human? Who am I in the midst of this disease? How do I define myself and what do I need to understand about what's happening to me? And and then I also refer people to Dr. Daniel Amen, who does brain scans as a psychiatrist, and you can see in his books, one in particular called The End of Mental Illness, brain scans of addicts. And you can see where their brains have been damaged by the drugs. And so their their executive function has been compromised. So their impulsivity is off the charts. And so the expectation that you're going to have a conversation with them and it's going to be logical and they're going to commit to a behavior and then they're going to follow through is honestly insane. It's not possible given the throes of the disease. And so that took me some that took me a little bit to rethink that also is that I finally decided I can't get caught up in his promise to do something, whether it was to go to rehab. We've been in and out of rehabs so many times, or to stay in rehab, or to call me on a certain day at a certain time, or to be available when I would drive up from Oregon into Washington. And there were a couple times where I drove up, which is like 4 or 5 hours, and he wasn't available. He wasn't there. He was out getting a fix, and he completely not aware of time or anything else related to other people because it's so consuming. And certainly with fentanyl at this point, because it is so rampant right now, is fentanyl users of fentanyl are completely hijacked in terms of their life. They have to get a fix every hour, hour and 15 minutes. So it completely consumes their life to be able to make sure that they get their fix and that they're prepared to get the next fix. And and so they are not available. They're not functioning, they're not making good decisions. Their ability to make good decisions is null and void. And so it's a completely different paradigm and a way of thinking about this disease and who our loved one is in the throes of it. So, building your patience muscle, I guess, building your kindness and compassion muscle, just from the point of I love you and I'm not going to give you money. And I'm going to stick by that rule. And I'm going to continue to love you even when you're high, as long as you're not argumentative, you're not throwing things, you're not dangerous or aggressive. That is an absolute no go. And you need to either call the police, extricate them from the premises, handle it in some form or fashion because that is completely unacceptable that you're in danger. So those are just a few things to kind of pre-think going into the holidays. And who do you need to have conversations with? so that everybody's in alignment around this. And that is much easier said than done. And so at least hopefully you can come to some agreements about how everybody's going to be in this. And again, the holidays are kind of ripe for things that happen anyway in families, but you add drugs and somebody who's in substance abuse disorder to the mix, and it can become quite um, volatile, toxic, all the things. So I'm encouraging you to think this through, talk it through with your family, with your friends, and hopefully get on the same page about what the boundaries are around what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and sticking to the agreements that you make around what's not acceptable. The other thing too is I would highly encourage you to make sure you're doing the things to take care of yourself so that you have great reserves to pull from where you are steadier and calmer because you've taken care of yourself. Making sure you're eating well, making sure you're getting sleep, making sure you're getting exercise, making sure you're getting time out in nature, making sure that you are around great people that the things that that work for you, because the more you are taken care of, the more able you are able to make the decisions that you need to make in order to navigate the holidays. So, yeah, I think those are the major things to be keeping in mind. And remember, love yourself in the midst of this. Take care of yourself in the midst of this. Do your work. I remember I did a podcast not too long ago with Andy Graham, and one of the things that his son said to him was when he asked his son, "What can I do to support you?" His son said, "Just do your work, Dad. Just do your work." And so that's my encouragement to each one of you that are listening to this right now. Just do your emotional, psychological work to understand this disease, to understand yourself in this disease, to be patient in this disease, to learn to be calmer. Don't get into a argument. It's it's a failed strategy. It's never going to go where you want it to go. Kind of be the adult in the room to some extent. Be the peace and calm. And that I can tell you really, really does help. And it's a practice. I know how difficult this is when you feel that the stakes are really high. And and they are. And you're not going to shame them into getting the help they need. You're not going to judge them into getting the help they need. You're never going to yell at them to get the help they need and have it turn out well. So they need to know at the other end of the day that there's a happy, healthy person waiting for them when they do recover and when they do get healthy. So be that person for them and for yourself. And we'll be continuing to talk about this as we head into Halloween and then Thanksgiving, excuse me, and then Christmas and then New Year's and then Super Bowl. These are all opportunities to practice new skills, new ways of looking at this, new ways of handling this that work much better than just being in reaction mode. So please take care of yourselves. Do the things that will support you in your work. Take care.